Dear Captain, Terran defenses are just plain stupid. I know I messed up my Roach rush build a little bit, but one Cyclone completely shut down the entire rush. How is that acceptable? I did a decent job hiding the Roach Warren, and that accomplished nothing. I immediately tech up the Spire. Again, the Terran had no idea it was coming, but just a couple of blind turrets and completely shut it down again. I took so many good fights and was up on supply for the entire time. It was 5 base versus 2 base at one point, and I was doubling the Terran's income. But it was just impossible to break the Terran. Every time I wipe his army, he just pump Marine Marauder Medevac like it's free. Finally, I took one unlucky fight and got the Terran planetary down to just below 50 HP, and it got repaired back up almost instantly to full. Like, hello? Who thinks it's a good idea to have a base that cannot die, deal a ton of damage, and don't need to be defended at all? Question mark. I outplayed this Terran from start to finish, and yet I still lost the game at the end. Terran defenses is just Imba. P.S. Terran didn't even make Widow Mines. Don't even get me started with that. Name: Cool Cats. Race: Zerg. League: Diamond. The MMR is 3.5k and we're on the North American server. A banger of a ZVT. Alright, Cool Cats, what do we have here? A ZVT on the North American server. Diamond, 3.5k MMR. Beautiful stuff here. We have Kudo Lol. That H makes it difficult to pronounce for me as a mediocrely dumb Dutch person. So we're just going to call him Kudo Lol. I think he'll be okay with that. Cool Cats. It actually is the name of a shop around here. Used to be the name of a shop. When I was like 10, I always wanted to buy clothes there because it had the word cool and cat in there. And I liked both of these things. But I'm not sure if this shop is actually still around. I remember it being all the rage back in the day. Let's see if Cool Cats is the same here. So he opens up with a pretty standard opener here. Hatchery first, into a gas, into a spawning pool. Nothing too weird. The Terran opens up with double depot at the ramp and a command center in the main base. And Cool Cats will spot the fact that there's no command center on the low ground. So there's two options right now. One, you sacrifice your Overlord in towards the main because you want to know if at least there's a barrack here. The command center should be going down at 140-ish. If it isn't there once your Overlord arrives, something odd is going on. And you probably want to scout what that odd thing is. Like, hey, is there a CC in the main base? Is there a barracks in your main base? Like, am I being 2-Rex proxied? But Cool Cats is completely happy with this information. He's like, okay, there's no command center. Let me throw down a Roach Warren. And as a defensive tool, the Roach Warren here could be quite powerful, of course, against a one-base play. He defends against this Reaper harass in a decent way. I'm not quite sure what these links are doing here. Perhaps anticipating that the Reaper was going to move up here, but I think they would have been slightly more useful on the low ground, defending against the Reaper in the first place. Like, you don't have to block this area the entire time, but oh well, it is what it is. So Roach Warren has not been scouted so far, and he actually mentioned this, that he was pretty proud that he managed to hide the Roach Warren, but he didn't actually hide the Roach Warren. The Terran player just wasn't looking for it. And, well, perhaps one of the reasons that the Terran wasn't looking for it is because the Terran blindly built a bunker in his main base and is getting a tech lab on the factory. Like, I don't think you can brag about hiding a Roach rush well if your Roaches get spotted the moment your Roaches pop from your natural. Like, that is hiding as well as an elephant hiding behind a pole. It's like, I appreciate the effort of you putting the Roach Warren in the back of your base and patrolling your links in this area, even though the Reaper is here, but this is not really hiding it. And yeah, I'm just not so sure if you would want to even pull my attention to the point of hiding the Roaches if they literally get spotted 40 seconds before they move across the map. This guy already has the SCVs pulled towards the bunker 30 seconds before. He is so extremely ready. He's never been this ready for anything in his life. You do mention that the execution of the Roach Warren, what did you call it? Let me just quote you properly here. I know I messed up my Roach rush build a little bit, but one Cyclone completely shut down the entire rush. How is that acceptable? The question or the problem here isn't necessarily that your Roach rush wasn't executed properly, although it probably wasn't executed properly. The real issue is that you went for a Roach rush against someone that was on one base, and you scouted that he was on one base. This is a little bit, imagine you're in high school. You go up to your teacher with a piece of paper and you go, Sir, my tracing of the Mona Lisa isn't looking too great. It doesn't quite look like the Mona Lisa. And your teacher goes, well, that indeed does not look like the Mona Lisa, but you're in year 3 math over here, and you're 29 years old. I think your poor tracing of the Mona Lisa is the least of your worries. And I think it's the same here. You're doing the completely incorrect thing. You're responding wrong. And the fact that your execution of your wrong response is incorrect as well, that just kind of adds to the pain. But it's kind of irrelevant. You should not be marching roaches across the map if your opponent is on one base. If your opponent is on one base, you might want to build some roaches defensively because you don't know what's going on. But why would you move across the map? You're up a base. All you need to do is defend. So just really surprising. I mean, yeah, if he gets a Cyclone out and you don't have any links, you are like, yeah, you're going to lose your roaches, or at least some of the roaches. You don't necessarily need to stay here the entire time. You could send this roach in towards the Cyclone so the rest gets to escape. You can split your army up in 2 groups. You can use the line of sight blockers. Like, so far you've lost 1 roach and 2 links. And if you would micro your roach, you might be even able to escape here to the watchtower. And once you're in the watchtower, there's absolutely nothing he can do. But rather than going to the watchtower and safety, you just kind of walk back and forth and let all of your roaches die, which, in my opinion, is the incorrect call. Funnily enough, you even get the Cyclone. Like, this wasn't even that bad of a trade for you. Although you shouldn't have been on this side of the map, I think it ends up quite well. And I believe you're actually quite far ahead because he had like 10 workers pool to repair the bunker in case you moved up. So you're actually in a completely fine position. Had you spent any of your money during the entire period of this, your 3rd base would have been done already. Your 4th probably would be started or practically started. You could have had you actually have a layer done already. Okay, so life is pretty good. You just follow this up with 2 base Muta. You get your 3rd base going, you're up 10 workers, your opponent has no infrastructure whatsoever, doesn't have a 3rd base yet. This is a fantastic position. So, although you tried handing in your tracing of the Mona Lisa in a year 3 math class, you're still succeeding. You're what is it in American terms? Are you a C? Is that good in America? It's like just on the edge. I think it's a C. In the Netherlands, it would be like a 6. 5.5 gets rounded up to a 6. That's what I did in high school. And I think in American, it's a C or C plus maybe, C minus. All of that probably is fine. I think once you hit a D, that is no good. And then an E, I'm not even sure if they have E's. Probably. And an F is terrible. It's the worst thing. F is complete failure. It's a weird system with the letters. Always confuses me. Numbers way easier. No pluses, no minus, just decimal point numbers. Oh, Americans. Always having to mess with everything. Alright, so your opponent follows this up with 4 racks into command center with Banshees and Marine Cyclone. Yeah, the build order honestly doesn't make a lot of sense, and there's no real threat to you either, so you can just safely drone up. Now, you would be aware of this if you would scout, or if you would have any information whatsoever, but because you honestly haven't scouted at all so far this game, you have no clue what's going on, and you have no clue what your position is either. I'm surprised that you just kind of keep building drones, you get the macro hatch, get another hatchery, without knowing anything. Like, you're being 2 base all in at this point. You could be getting 2 base all in at this point, and it could be hitting right now if your opponent had a tight build order, and what you're doing is building pure Muta. I would not have been correct, but then again, you have no info, so you don't know what is correct. 4th case gets spotted. Also, it would be easy here to make fun of the Zerg player. Getting a macro edge on 3 bases. But I respect this call, and I'm going to say it again. I say this every time I see something like this. If you are having trouble spending your money in the game, Do not hesitate to build an extra hatchery. Do not hesitate to build extra barracks. Do not hesitate to add more gateways into your production. If you're having trouble spending your money, it is better to spend it in more production, so it's easier to spend your money in the future. And then once you realize you don't actually have enough money in future games, you can just dial back that amount. But it's better to spend it into something than to just have it floating. So a hatchery here, although it is not standard, and it is not common, and not many people do it at the highest level, it's completely fine. I don't mind this. And I'll never make fun, and I'll never say this is a mistake if you're a lower level player and you're doing something like this. If you're trying to play a very optimized build order, and you say that this is an optimized build, then I would disagree with that. But if you're struggling at spending your money, go ahead. All is good in the world. I don't give a crap about that. So, Fort Base is about to finish up. You have your double Evo chambers. Baling Nest is... I think I saw it, yeah. Baling Nest complete. Should start the baling speed immediately, obviously. The moment you're going Muralist, you want to play Ling, Bane, Mura, as these units complement each other very well. Your Muralist harass does absolutely nothing. Your opponent, by the way, you said he blindly built turrets, but I think he scanned because he was aware of the Spire. And even if it was blind turrets, I mean, if he defends, he defends. Why do you care how he got the defense ready? You know, if it's the correct response, then he did the correct response. A little bit of Banshee harass. What is this, by the way? Yes, little 2 gases being added here onto the 5th base. 4th base already saturated, already done. You decide to get the double extractors at the 5th, which still has, about 35 seconds more to build. That's fantastic stuff. On top of that, well, you're already floating 1200 gas at this point. You need gas about as bad as I need lip enhancement surgery. So maybe try spending your money first before getting more and more gas, especially if you're not planning on adding any extra Mutalisk into this composition. Like if your plan is to completely mess out on Mutas at this point, I wouldn't mind it so much. You're actually going up to 10 gas already. Holy crap. This is really early on a low drone count. You need minerals as well. Minerals, not very often when you're playing Mutas, are the limiting factor. But if you have these little drones, they can be a limiting factor. And I think right now priority should be to get a lot of banelings out and to just get a buzzing eco. Make sure you have plenty of larva. Make sure you have plenty of links that you can morph into banelings. You can kind of start spending your money because you're just floating an astronomical amount of crap. Terran moves in. If you had any banelings ready at this point, or you had spent any of your money, this would have been an easy defense. And here, once again, I can already hear you replying with, but my opponent also has a lot of money. It's like, yes, but that's the point, isn't it? Both of you aren't brilliant players, but you can't complain about something being completely broken while you're literally floating 3k resources. 2.7k resources. Like, that's just not how it works. Yes, your opponent is making mistakes, but you're also making mistakes. You're making huge mistakes. Like, this isn't a tiny error, like a small decision that goes wrong. Like, you're literally floating an infinite amount of resources, and you can observe this issue yourself very clearly as well. This is not like you need the input of a professional to figure this out, you know? It's just obvious. It's like you're participating in a running competition and you're running backwards. It's like you don't need Usain Bolt to tell you that running backwards isn't going to be the most optimal. Like most people that haven't even ran in their life can tell you that this isn't optimal. Just like most people that haven't played StarCraft, you'd be like, well, about spending your money, that would be a good start in improving, no? And indeed, it would have been a good start to improving. But of course, complaining in a balanced complaint form in an IO is a lot more fun and feels better as well, you know? Getting angry at something else that isn't yourself. That does tend to work better. You know, just deflecting a bit of that blame. Terran actually is macroing it out pretty well. You also got rid of a lot of your resources as you just build a crap ton of Banes. This is the correct call. Ling, Bane, Muralist. You haven't used the Muralist to harass in a while. That is probably because your opponent built 4 turrets in the natural. And you're like, alright, the ability to harass has now been denied. I will never harass again. Not knowing that the 3rd base is completely empty, that you can still pick off depots, you can pick off SCVs, maybe like low marine counts that are being popped out of barracks. There's a lot of things you can still do with the Muralist, and the Muralist really is just a harassment unit. It's nice in an army, but it's not super brilliant. Like the banelings and the links will provide the majority of the damage output, and that's really what you want to be focusing on as well. Your creep threat also is completely non-existent, by the way, but We'll wait with that as we have a bit of a fight. Your banelings are actually connecting with everything. This is a complete win. Yeah, this game is over. At this point, the only thing you actually need to do is start your 2-2 upgrades. Morph like 20 more banelings here, and you can probably move command into your opponent's third base with the banelings and win the game. So these banes, well, they're gonna connect with more. Yeah, this is fine as well. You kill all the workers. Maybe you don't even need the banelings. I think a couple extra banelings would have been nice, but I mean, the game is over anyway. You're up 30 workers. This is the point where you set your 5 base against 2. Now that is a little bit deceptive. I once again have to stop you here because this base isn't really mining. You have 71 workers, which is technically 3.2 base saturation, something like this. Nah, slightly higher, 3.3, 3.4, 3.3, something like that. So it's not really 5 base saturation. Also because you're heavily oversaturated, you're actually barely on like 2.5 base saturation. So your opponent has an entire mineral line. You're really just mining about 1.5 mineral line more than your opponent, I would say here. 1.5, 2, maybe 2 mineral lines more. Because you do have this entire base mining. There's like 6 patches over here and there's 4 patches here. So yeah, it is quite a bit. But this is not a crazy amount. You don't have to attack into your opponent, but you can. You could also continue upgrading, like I already mentioned. 2-2 is just an important upgrade. Just like every upgrade is important, especially once you get more units. Your upgrades are just... It's a very cheap investment for a lot of return throughout the game. A unit can be used once and upgrades are always going to be used. So I would definitely recommend continuing that. It's also just really important against Marines, which have a very high rate of fire to get these upgrades going. You decide to once again attack into this position. I'm not entirely sure why you decide to go through this little choke. You were just up here, and you're like, how could I make this fight more difficult for myself? Oh, I could move through the choke at the third base. You run around and then just move through this massive funnel. You'll still get the connections with these banelings, obviously, because, well, all of these Marines are pretty exposed at this point. You do leave the mineral line somewhat untouched, but you have more banelings, so life is going to be hard. Yeah, you can just kill every single SCV here, and that's what you'll do. Correct play, honestly. Did lose all of your mutas, which I don't completely approve of. Let's see that one in the replay, because that was a curious one. Okay, one more time. So you blow this up. That was good. And then here, right at this moment, is where you realized that you have won the lottery. Okay, look at this. You've won the lottery, and you ate the ticket. Just like that, you ate the ticket. Oh, no. 25 million down the drain. And for the next 3 days, you'll be with a little stick going through your own excrement, seeing if the ticket is still intact. Like, what was that? They were connecting. They could smell the Marines already, ready to explode, and then they got the order to go back, and the links get sent in as a replacement. No, they also get turned back. So, you're still very far ahead, don't get me wrong, but I think this could have been handled slightly better, where you could have killed every single Marine and been in an absolutely unlosable position. 11 more drones, you know, I don't even mind this. Just increasing the size of your lead is honestly not a bad call. So right now you're playing for a longer game. You might want to, you know, start working on these upgrades. Your fight so far, even though you said that you haven't lost a fight yet, I think pretty consistently you've been losing more than killing. But because you have such a superior eco, it is kind of okay. I would like if you would continue building a couple more banelings though. Banelings are pretty crucial. Any type of map vision would also be nice, so you wouldn't have to deal with any nasty surprises like this one. Glio Reconstitution and 9 Ravagers. It's a debatable call here, as you don't have any attack upgrades for the Ravagers. Maybe you figured out that it's too easy to hit your opponent's army with banelings, and it might be easier to miss your opponent's army with biles, because that seems to have been the goal so far. And you do hit the tanks. Your bile control actually is pretty good. But banelings here would just win. Like, absolutely. Just destroy this army. Just even 4 or 5 banelings here would be huge. Biles are going to hit, but Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, you'll clean up this army again, and that's nice. But banelings really are absolutely key in this type of... Yeah, there we go. 32 banelings. A little bit surprising. You also lost this base, and you lost like 30 workers. You're back on 4 bases now, but a lot of these bases are semi-mined out. You've had no map vision this entire game, unless you attack. And then the only bit of map vision you get is basically the area you attack in. So yeah, once you get the banelings, you're just going to crush another engagement. Or at least get a pretty decent trade here. Tanks go down. I wish your mutas were still alive to kill this. You're slightly up in workers. You really need to start re-establishing a 5th base at this point, though. And probably even get a couple of extra drones. Still no 2-2. Means that this is a somewhat playable position for the Terran. Ooh, this is a poorly synchronized attack here. And a right-click on the planetary. Without killing the SCVs. If this entire attack... Now, there is a world. There is a universe somewhere. One of the many universes in our simulated universe theory. There are one of the many parallel universes in which all of this engages at the same time. Now, I can imagine this, you know? I could visualize what this would look like. And in this case, what would happen is you throw the biles on the planetary, you use the banelings not only to force the marine marauder into a corner, and then you use the banelings like this, prop, in like a sweeping motion to go into the planetary while killing the repairing SCVs. And that is the real point of the banelings in these types of attacks, is to force the SCVs to not clump up around the planetary. You can also split the banelings a little bit. That usually is quite helpful. And if you would have tanked with the Roach Ravager the planetary shots, your banelings might have been able to do that motion. On top of that, you also could have used the biles to hit the planetary and the SCVs. Or at least hit the SCVs. That way the repair isn't possible. So there were a couple of options here. But you decided to move command the banelings into nothingness. First the links, then the banelings, then the Ravagers. Like, this is throwing a lead at a very high level. Like, I have not seen a throw like this in a very long time. And if the 1919 White Sox were watching this, they would be jealous at this skill. Because you make it look so natural, so flawless. The way that you lose stuff. It really does not feel like you're doing this intentionally. Floating a decent amount of money during this. Of course, we still have the 4K gas in the bank as well. Always making sure that we have that as a backup. In case we need to transition into a unit that only costs gas. In case Zerg gets the Templar Archives as one of the many structures added to the race in one of the next patches. And the patch goes live during your ladder game. All of these scenarios are of course very realistic. So we continue our gas income rather than long distance mining a couple of extra minerals. Oh, I missed a fight. It doesn't really seem to matter because at this point you don't actually have the eco. You went for an all-in while you were in a decent position. You didn't retake a 5th base quick enough. You retook this 5th base after your attack failed. Now you're rebuilding on Mutalisk, even though the way that you use the Mutalisk... This is another point, actually, that I want to make, is Mutalisk are a great unit when you can harass with them or for dealing with drops, that type of stuff. This Terran hasn't done any drops yet, and you don't know how to harass. That's fine. If you don't know how to harass, once again, that is okay. Know your limitations, but don't pretend like you're Serral or Raynor or Dark or Rogue or one of the other 5 top Zergs, and that you can use these Mutalisks to get back into a game through harassment. Because I know, and you know, and everyone watching this video knows, that these mutas are going to be put in the same freaking control group as the rest of your army, and it will be used as a mediocre fighting unit with the rest of your army. So in that case, these 800 would be much better invested into more banelings. But rather than doing that, you're pretending like your name is Serral here, Yona Satala, and you're building 9 more Mutalisks. Also an infestation pit. You want to tech into Ultralisk at this point. After having a 50 drone lead, you're like, nah, let's stay on 1-1 upgrades and... still 1-1, right? Yep, 1-1 upgrades, pure Ling Bane or Ling Ravager Mutalisk. This is the timing where you have no eco left and you're under heavy pressure that you want to go into lurkers at this point. And a hive is truly unbelievable. Ling run by that dealt... What is it? 90 damage on this planetary and lost you about 60 links. If this trade would have been described in Art of the Deal, this would have been a very favorable deal for the Terran player, okay? If Donald Trump had played StarCraft 2, this trade would have made it in as a very good, the top deal, the best of the best. Not many people can make such a deal. Don't forget about that. Yeah, I mean, your Lurker transition is just way too late. Also, Muta into Lurker isn't very common. And I would not suggest it. Yeah, you're just absolutely dead. I mean, he has 2 units. He's up 80 supply. And you lost. Yeah, you absolutely got destroyed. Now, I could go on a very long rant about the many mistakes you made and point out all the individual mistakes. But there really was a couple of common themes throughout this game. And I think the 3 main themes were your vision, your upgrades, your army composition, and your engagements. And I'm well aware that that is not 3 things, but 4. So there's 4 main themes during the game. Your complete lack of map vision whatsoever, not taking watchtowers, not knowing when drops from the right side are coming, not knowing when attacks were coming whatsoever. All of these things, map vision was absolutely garbage. Creep spread was non-existent, and that kind of adds in the complete lack of map vision as well. But not even taking watchtowers or overlord spreading, which is practically free and also doesn't require too much APM. It just was painful to watch. You were never ready for a single attack. You never had the correct units as a result. You never morphed banelings ahead of time either. That really did just suck. The second point, your fights. Almost all of your fights were bad. And if they weren't bad, it was because you just A-moved. Like, majority of the time, I think the actual control of your units was worse than if no one would have touched it. And this is, we actually have a term for this. This is called negative micro. It is better if you don't touch it and just A-move. And I genuinely believe this to be the case for probably majority of the StarCraft players, but especially for you. And I would recommend, and this is not a joke or being rude, I really would recommend is just A-moving in the future. Just A-moving your units and then casting the spells afterwards. No individual control on banelings, not trying to do anything too fancy. I believe it would be better for you. So, yeah, on the fights, I would say, it's not in balance. It just, wasn't great for you. Then the next 2 points, the upgrades. Well, you never started upgrading past 1-1. You also started building roaches, although you had no range upgrades. Your unit compositions were all over the place in general as well. I mean, you went, Muta Roach Rush into Muta Ling Bane, into Ravagers, into Ling Bane, into Muta, into Hydra Lurker, but you never got there. So, kind of all over the place, not very good. Yeah, I kind of forgot my last point already, so we're back to 3. Congratulations. Yeah, this is how we roll, man. Yeah, we put all of these things together. I mean, you did nothing better than at a mediocre level. So, yeah, Terran defenses are not imbalanced. You just don't know how to control your army, how to build your army, or how to be in position. And thus, my friend, you suck. And that's the harsh reality of things. That's how it is. All right. That's going to be it for me today. Thanks all so much for watching. If you did enjoy this episode of Is It Imba or Do I Suck? Be sure to check out the other ones. We have a massive playlist that gets updated on a monthly basis. So be sure to click that. Hit the video like and the subscription to the channel. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers. We're only 15,000 or so away. And I'm hoping to get it before the end of the year. That would be great. So yeah, try to make that happen. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.